hey, and thank you for clicking play. And if you're watching this, it means that Rich, who won the Christmas competition, has already received his copy of the game that I made using Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. So what I'm now happy to share with the rest of you is what the game looks like. I'll share with you some of my process of using Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. And I'll talk a little bit about how I used the Gotek in that process as well. But this game was made 100%. Let me just manage expectations here first and foremost. The game's rubbish. Of course the game's rubbish. I made it in Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. It's rubbish. And all the graphics are hand-drawn by myself. So it's doubly rubbish. It really, and I couldn't think of a theme. So the theme that I came up with is rubbish. It's all fine. So the game is called 005 AGIMA, Game 1. And if I make another game, it'll be called Game 2. Although I do have another game that won't fall under that, but yeah. Anyway, another game idea. Here we go, front of the case. This was properly printed at a place called Officeworks. I tried to match the same cardstock as the sort of, we use. So I won't open it, as other examples in these kind of cases used. Same, I think it was 140 GSM. Back of the box. Don't know if you could see the screenshots. So anyway, and now I'll read to you what it says on the back to build excitement and anticipation. Still can't read it. The story so far. Go. All the lights are wrong because I'm looking at my selfie light right there. The story so far. You are, for no reason, in a skull-shaped space fighter, flying over 3 versions of Amiga Workbench. Something has clearly gone wrong. Perhaps an evil invasion of other systems. Perhaps the Amiga community has turned on itself. No, that would never happen. Or perhaps because of the author of this game couldn't think of any interesting enemies. Regardless, your task is to shoot at anything that, well, isn't you. And I almost forgot. There's probably a cleavage-laden babe to save, but for no reason doesn't actually appear in the game. Mainly because I'm a pixel artist and you really didn't want to see the results that came out of that. This game may be Amiga compatible, who knows? Made with Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit on a real Amiga 500, which it was, 100%. One of only 2 copies made. Copyright Chris Winter, aka 005 AGIMA. So that's what it says on the back of the box. And front of the box again. Let's open it up. And all that's inside is the disc. So I think before we fire it up, I'll say front of the disc, back of the disc. And just to let you know, there is one subtle difference between this version, which is my copy, and the version that Rich would have received by now. There is one Sprite Swap. So there's a special character in his version of the game that is not in my version of the game. So I'm going to quickly show you some of my process in Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit, and then we will have a look at the final game. Right, so I've booted up Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit via the original disc on the A500. But the difference is, rather than saving to a floppy disk, as I would have done back in the day via the internal drive, I've got my Gotek rigged up here with a file, which I think is the right disk image. Got that many ADFs because I was creating backups, obviously. And so what you can do in Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit is go down to storage, and you can go new drive, type in DF1, internals DF0, this is DF1, hit enter, then go load data and load everything, and here we go, the contents of the Gotek, or the thumb drive, or the ADF currently selected on the thumb drive more specifically. So Gotek, I have done a separate video on why and how I use a Gotek as external drive DF1. So do check that out if you're not familiar with them. But essentially an ADF is a virtual disk image, a virtual floppy disk image. So even though, you know, I've got lots of space on this thumb drive, each disk image is still limited to 880 kilobytes because that's the size of a floppy disk. So that's what you're restricted to. Loaded. And there we go. So why was I using this rather than a floppy disk? Well, because guess what? On a floppy disk, when you're playing about with shoot 'em up construction kit, when you're in the creation phase, you kind of accidentally run out of disk space on a single floppy quite easily, especially when you're poking around and reminding yourself how to use this stupid software. But of course, if a disk, while I'm working on this game, becomes corrupt, which is quite easy, even if they're new old stock, you know, depending on how they've been stored, they could get stuffed up. It would have been so easy to lose all my data. And so that's why I straight away used a Gotek whilst working on this game. And even doing that, I did have an ADF become corrupt. And I think that's partially because I did, you know, about, I don't know, a couple of weeks into the process, thought, I wonder if I can fire up this image in emulation. Tried that, and for whatever reason, it just stuffed up the ADF. Fortunately, I had the forethought, and I'd created multiple copies. So I just had to go back to another version of the a backup copy of the ADF. And then from that point, what I'll do is every time I'd done some work on here, I would save to 1 or even 2 disk images separately on the Gotek, shut the Amiga down, pull that out, put it in my PC, and copy those ADF files over into my OneDrive. So that, and I was incrementally creating backup folders as well, so that again, if anything went wrong, well, guess what? It's in the cloud. I can save it. if this entire room caught fire, I would not have lost that work. It's amazing. We just couldn't think, you know, back in the day that this would even be possible. But that was how I was doing it, and that's why I was using the Gotek. So other than that, it was all done 100% on the Amiga 500. Let's have a look at the theme that I came up with. So if I go to edit background, yeah, we'll do that. And we'll go edit block. Yeah. And you'll start to get an idea of the background. So edit, I mean, you literally have to draw pixel by pixel. Okay, this is how this works. So this is creating the background images that go to make up the map. It'll all make sense as I go through. And you can see you really don't have many. Copy isn't copying within here. It's not like you can draw something and then copy it and paste it. You can't do that. This is to copy this entire block to another block. So if I select a different destination number, then let's say I did destination 3, and if I click copy, which I'm not going to do, that would copy the contents of this block onto block 3 so that I could use that as a template to go on and do something else. So there's, yeah, literally you have to draw everything from scratch. There's only a flood fill, so it's not like you can draw a shape and then fill within it. So literally pixel by pixel by pixel for every single block is what I've had to do. So whilst you're about to see some very simplistic graphics, I'm just sort of letting you know what I went through to put this damn thing together. So, okay, you might start to get the idea of the theme as we go through. You can see the real size here, and this is the zoomed in editing window. And basically, I themed it to look like Workbench 1.3 to start off with some added extra features. And then, oh, that's a bit of a teaser there as to one of the boss areas. And then Workbench 2, or really Workbench, to be honest, I think they're the same. I don't know what the difference is. But anyway, so the grey, well, let's call it the grey and blue Workbench is what I've got there. So again, had to essentially draw them all again by hand. So what I was doing here is I would actually have a zoomed in, I would find a copy of an image of a Workbench version on the PC on the internet, or fire it up in emulation, have it on the screen on my PC here, and then basically, and zoom in, and then basically trying to recreate what I was seeing pixel by pixel here. And then we got my custom version of Workbench that I use on my A500, which is blacks and reds and greys or whites. There's another area there, another boss area. Won't show you that. Okay, so you get an idea. That's how that works. And then what you have to do, once you've got all your blocks ready, you basically place them in the map. And here is the map. So you can see that's what the level starts to look like. The vertical scrolling shoot 'em ups. The only two types of shoot 'em ups you can make in Shoot 'em up construction kit are vertical scrolling or static level. And you can mix and match those, by the way, which I did do in this game. So some levels scroll, other levels are static. And there you go, just a bit of a fun poke around to create what looks like a version of Workbench that you are traversing through. Right, so what are you traversing it through in? Well, let's have a look. So if I go to my sprites now, this is where we have to draw, again, pixel by pixel, all the sprites in the game. And this is the main player. I made it only one player because, you know, couldn't be bothered sorting out two players. But basically, it is my logo, but upside down because it's like a ship. It's like a ship, a skull-shaped ship, as said on the back of the game, that you are flying up the level. And then this is what it looks like when it's tilted. So I had to draw those separately. At least things like that you can then do, you can mirror. So you create one and then mirror it to get the other side. So you could do that. What you can't really see here, and then that's the bullets that it shoots. What you can't really see here, but you will see, is I've also drawn a shadow to give it some distance. You can kind of see it up there. It's just a very slightly dark, like a near black. When we play the game, it'll be visible. Bullets, and then some other enemy elements. So, and deaths. So you have to create everything. So how do things die? What do they look like? Is it animated when they die? That kind of thing. What do bullets look like? Enemies. What directions can they travel? What do they look like when they travel? Bullets. What do the bullets look like? And the funny thing with something like a bullet is you go, okay, let's just draw a circle. How do you draw a circle with squares? And because there's no circle tool in here, and actually drawing circles is a bit of a mind bender. Drawing explosions, I'm rubbish at explosions. And then some other effects, that non-death effects that I wanted to have, like a sort of scan effect. There's my maiden that you have to save. I can't draw characters. I just can't do it. So she's a grey stick man. I'd run out of colours as well. You pick a colour set, and for me, not being used to pixel art, halfway through the project you go, I regret these colour choices. This is not working for me. Especially if you want to do anything with flesh tones and you don't have any flesh tones. Doesn't work. Anyway, there she is. There's the maiden waving at us. And some other enemy bits. So that's how that works. And of course you have to, you also have to, so you've got a bit here, edit objects, and this is where you essentially set what different things are. So you've got your players, objects, player fire, player death, player 2, which I didn't use. Enemy fire, what does the enemy fire look like? So ignore all these because the last frame is frame 0, so it's just the circle bullet there. That's what the enemy fire looks like. Enemy fire 2, something can shoot arrows. Enemy fire 3, something can shoot balls. Enemy fire 4, something can shoot the numbers 0 and 1. And you can see that animating down here because I've set it to animate between frames 0 and 1. So things like that. So anything that is directional. So this is enemy fire. You'll see the direction change here. So yeah, same with, if I go back to object 1, object 0, you'll see down here, that's how it flies because I've drawn those sprites and I've placed them. So you can see that changing there. So I won't bore you with all of it, but you have to set all those. And then you also, if I go edit enemy bits, this is where you set how fast is an enemy? How many points does that enemy give you? How many hits does it take to kill? Does it have directional fire? What's the fire rate? What's the bullet speed? Explosion sound effect, bullet sound effect, explosion object, bullet object. You have to set all of that. What happens in terms of collisions? Enemy to ship. Does the so your ship hitting the enemy? Does the enemy die? Does the ship die? Enemy to bullet. So your bullet hitting the enemy. Does the enemy die? Does the bullet die? So you could have impenetrable enemies if you wanted to as well. And then so these are the enemies, you know. So you have to set all that up as well. Absolutely crazy. A lot of things to think about. Didn't edit the sound effects. I just used existing sound effects from one of the demo games that comes with Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. Edit player limitations. So you have to set in your map background where the levels begin and end, and then in player limitations you have your player parameters. So that's where you set how many lives they have, what's the speed of the ship, what color is the score on the screen, amount of bullets, if it's directional fire, how long does the bullet last, what's the bullet speed, what's the fire rate, do you get an extra life. This originally had extra lives and I found it was too easy, and I thought I could either change how the scoring works or I'll just turn this off. So I've just turned it off. There's no extra lives, got 3 lives and that's it. Explosion sound effects, all that. So that's for your player. And then once you've got all that set, you have to set what's the area that the player can play in, and you also have to set where the player starts, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so there we go. So that's essentially just showing you the sort of mechanics behind this game, which is a rubbish game. I do promise you that. Now, I could load it from here, I could do the test, but you want to see it load off the actual disc, don't you? So, funnily enough, this is the only game I've ever created, because I remember trying this back in the day, and I couldn't get a game to auto boot. Let's see if I've managed it on this one that I've created for Rich. Okay, so here we go. The game. Let's get it out. That's the game we're playing today. And you can't really see that because the light's in the wrong place. You can see it there. Not really, because it's black. Here's the disc. This is the first time loaded since I put the label on. So there we go. Let's do it. In she goes. 005 AGIMA, Game 1. And what I'll do is I'll show it to you on here, but I'll also show you some through emulation after, but I just want to show you it running off the actual disc. But yeah, through emulation you'll get a clearer look at what this game looks like, because I know you just really want to see the quality work. Quality. That's loading from here. You can see that. Of course, the Gotek flash is just like an external drive would. It's not loading off there. It's loading off here. And a real trap for young players, if I'd have left the same file as I had selected earlier on here, then it would crash because the same disk has the same name. So you wouldn't, the Amiga doesn't like having 2 disks of the same name. I've learned that now. There we go. Look, it's got to here. So this was, I created this, obviously. It's not correct, it's just my logo, but I recreated this again because I couldn't find my original file in Deluxe Paint, added the text, saved that out as per the recommendations in the manual. Lots of manual reading from the Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit manual, and then saved those and put them into a certain folder on the disk as well. There's some preparation you have to do to the disk to make it work, to make it load, and I found I couldn't do that to an ADF. I could only do that to a physical disk. It needed to be DF0. If my Gotek was DF0, then I could do it to an ADF. So the only reason I've got a copy of this on ADF is because I've basically duplicated it using Xcopy after I've got it working. So there's some work to do. You use one of the disks that you get with Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit to essentially copy the files across that are required, because it copies some of your workbench files across basically onto the disk so that the disk can auto boot in an Amiga. Then you save your game, you do a save everything, so all your game data is on the disk, and there's certain file naming conventions you have to follow. And then there's a text file that you have to edit to tell it to auto-load the game. Otherwise, you end up having to double-click on the icon to launch it, which is fine. But so you have to go through all that work. All the stuff is in the instruction manual. And this is the first time I've got this to work ever. So last time I attempted it would have been about 30 years ago. First time I got it to work ever, including my own loading screen. So I could have drawn anything on there, but obviously my logo. There we go. Press fire. And here we go. We're flying a red skull for no apparent reason. So obviously you can shoot. You can't shoot those discs. It says DFO bad. What shall I do? What happens if I can clean the discs. I can clean the discs. Now these drawers are open. These drawers are not open. I can fly over them. See the shadow? You see the shadow? There, under the ship. There's the shadow. But if I try and fly over an open drawer, oh, damn it. You can't fly over an open drawer because it's open. It's sticking up. And then there's some... So everything's gone wrong now in Workbench. So yeah, that's the whole game basically. You are flying over Workbench in my logo ship and you're shooting at the icons because they're shooting back at you and you're cleaning bad discs. That's all it is. Let's have a look at emulation so you can get a clearer view. So, look, there it is. So, Rich, I hope you like your game. But I do now have another idea of a game I want to make in Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit because I'm a glutton for punishment. So there will be another game, and that game I will make publicly available. This, if you're wondering how can you get your hands on a copy of such an awesome game, you can't. The whole point of the competition I ran was there was only ever going to be 2 copies, one for me and one for the winner of the competition, which was Rich. They're the only 2 copies in existence. That's all the world needs. Believe you me. But I have a more fleshed out one that I tried to do back in the day, and now I've sort of got my head around how I can make it happen in this. So I'm quite in Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. So I'm quite excited about that project. That will be my next project going forwards. But it may not be anytime soon because this takes a lot of work and I've got other things to do with my life. So yeah. You can't download this file, you can't download this game. It's just for me, just for Rich, because that makes a crap game just a little bit special. Thanks for watching.